Hello and welcome to Just Ride Bikes. I'm David and this is your weekly roundup of the most interesting bike tech news. And we kick off with what might be the best value road bike of 2025, Boardman's brand new SLR. The bike right here, which I'm currently testing with a Shimano Ultegra Di2 group set and carbon wheels, retails for £3,500. That's a crazy good price. For comparison, a Canyon Ultimate with the same parts is nearly twice the price. And get this, if you want a SRAM red AXA group set on a bike, then you look at £5,500, and that's a crazy silly money. You're normally looking at £9,000, £10,000, £11,000, £12,000 for a carbon fibre race bike with that top level group set. So a very competitive price indeed. The only downside though, the bikes are only available in the UK. So sorry if you're watching outside of the UK, maybe book a holiday to the UK, and with the price you save, you can have a nice holiday in the Cotswolds and take back a bike like this with you. The price isn't the only big story here though. The SLR is Boardman's top tier aero race bike, has been since the company launched over 10 plus years ago. But this is a ground up redesign from the last big update in 2016-2017. And the result of that redesign is that it's more aero. And for you aero geeks watching, they saved 5.7 watts of drag over the old bike. But that's not really a big story either. What's really exciting is we have a carbon fibre aero race bike, that's more aero than the last bike, but then they've improved tyre clearance up to 36mm and added mudguard or fender mount. So a race bike that takes mudguards, and the only other bike that fits in a tiny niche I can think of off the top of my head is the NV Melee. Boardman is using a tagline of 4 season fast, so essentially a race bike you can ride year round with the benefit of mudguards to keep you dry in the winter. If you want mudguards on a road bike, you're normally looking at an endurance road bike like a Giant Defy or Specialized Roubaix, but there aren't many race bikes that allow you to fit mudguards, proper clip-on mudguards like we have here on the bike I'm currently testing. But it does raise the question of, do people still ride race bikes in the rain these days, given the popularity of indoor training? And if you want a bike with mudguards, do you also want the added comfort and tyre clearance of an endurance road bike like a Giant Defy or NV3? Question for me to tackle in my review of the bike coming very soon. I'll put a link to the Boardman website down below. You can see a full range in more details. But let me know your thoughts on this bike, the price point, and that combination of a race bike geometry, but mudguard and wide tyre clearance. Right, a technology that some brands really want to become mainstream, but just wish hasn't happened yet. It's real-time tyre pressure readings, like you get in a modern car. Tells you on the dashboard what your tyre pressures are, and tells you or alerts you when they're going flat or if you have a puncture. SRAM has been offering it tyre whiz for several years. Gen 1 was a small flag atop a valve which didn't really catch on, while Gen 2 put a hardware at the base of the valve and was a step in the right direction. And this, which appears to be Gen 3, is the smallest and most discreet yet. It was spotted by BikeRadar.com at the opening weekend, the Spring Classics Omloop Het Nieuwsblad. So it looks like SRAM has embedded the technology right into the rims of the Zip wheels, which looks loads better and presumably has less aero and weight penalty than the previous systems. But the question is, where on earth is the battery? It does look like a rectangular section is held in place by the valve and the lock ring. So presumably when you remove the lock ring and take the valve out, that rectangular piece can slide out or lift out, and the battery is presumably hiding underneath there. So it's probably the same tiny battery as used on Gen 2. So it should be small, shouldn't add much weight either, and definitely a better implementation of the technology. So a lot better looking, smaller, lighter, more aero, but do we actually need the technology? It's easy to dismiss the idea of real-time tyre pressure data as a gimmick. And for a lot of people, it probably is, and probably not something you actually need. But personally, as a tech fan, I like the idea of having a live reading when you turn a computer on before a ride in the morning, instead of attaching a pressure gauge or a track pump to the tyre, which I do every ride to make sure the tyre pressures are perfect, though that's hardly the biggest hassle in the world, is it really? But generally, I'm on the fence about this technology. I mean, we're coping just fine without it right now. None of my bikes in the studio have tyre pressure sensors, and I'm coping just fine. But I'm open-minded. I always am open-minded to new technology because until you try it, you can't dismiss it. And it might be the next game changer in the long evolution of the bicycle, or it might be something we'll talk about in a tech fails video in 5, 10, 20 years time. So better for a company to try it. There's no pressure for anybody to buy it if they don't want it or don't need it. And clearly they are developing technology for the pros, give the pros that sort of marginal gains and benefits to win races. And if you are a tech head, a geek nerd, then it's something to get excited about, and interesting to see what SRAM does with this. It looks pretty ready to launch, so maybe they're launching something this year at the Tour de France, will be my guess for a rollout of this new technology. Right, let's turn our attention to Canyon, who launched something called My Canyon in the last few days. And this arrived in a post from Canyon, not a new bike, but sections of tubing that demonstrate their new ability to do or offer custom paint finishes, but not fully custom, but a bit more custom than the current option of 1 or 2 colors on their frames. They work with artists to create a series of amazing paint finishes, and these are just a small demonstration of that ability to really push a boat out in the same way we've seen from Trek with Project One and Aubert with My Aubert. And it's surprising more companies don't do custom paint in the way that those companies do. But perhaps more useful than paint finishes is the ability now to customize the specification and dimensions of the contact points on the bike. One of the common complaints of Canyon bikes and the one-piece handlebars on their mid to high-end bikes is the fact you can't choose a stem length and a bar width you want and need for your bike fit. Well, now you can, and that is definitely a positive thing if you need a stem that's longer or shorter than the one that Canyon reckons you need for your height and size. Going on their fit guide, you can also choose setback on the seat post and change the specifications as well, but one thing you can't do is choose the crank arm length. And given the trend now for shorter cranks and the pro peloton and the obvious impact of that on the amateur ranks and people copying the pros, the shame you can't also specify what cranks you want as well. But definitely a positive mood, and the only downside really is you'll have to wait a bit longer for that bike to be built to your specification. The lead time is around 6 to 12 weeks, and the other downside is the fact it's only available on the top of the range aero CFR. The plan is for this customization to eventually be available on all bikes at all price points, hopefully, but for some reason right now it's been limited to top end bikes. I've no idea why, maybe logistics or something like that. But definitely a good move. It's something Canyon have been working on apparently for a long time, and I think it's long overdue that they both offer that custom specification for fit and also some more snazzy paint finishes too. Right, next up, the new BMC Teammachine SLR, and external routing is dead, long live internal routing it seems. So love or hate it, internal routing is here to stay and very popular indeed, but until now mostly only available on top of the range and therefore expensive bikes, but is slowly but surely trickling down to lower priced bikes, as is the case with BMC's newly updated entry-level Teammachine SLR. Previously, only the SLR01, the top of the range bike, had internal routing, but now the cheapest SLR, with prices starting from $3,000, so yes, not cheap, but cheap in their range of bikes, gets the same internal routing treatment. I last reviewed the Teammachine SLR way back in 2021, and it's still a bike model I really like. I first rode one in 2012, and I've always liked the way the Teammachine rides. Great handling, good comfort, stiffness, balance. And I always like the way it looks as well. It looks very distinctive compared to all the other bikes that all sort of look the same. But I do think the Teammachine SLR01, the top of the range bike, is definitely due for an update. The Teammachine R has pushed the aero envelope to the max, so it leaves the regular Teammachine as perhaps a bike that can go lighter and take the battle to the giant Teaser Advanced SL with, I would guess, a 6.5 kilo target for the weight. And the 30mm tyre clearance on that bike is also narrow compared to 32, 33 and even 36 in the case of this race bike here. Right, next up, Chinese company Elves is apparently developing a brand new aero race bike that looks very similar to a Trek Madone, with a similar hole in the seat tube arrangement. There's nothing official from the company yet, but just leaked images, so no real details around what the bike is and will be and what that hole does. So we can only speculate. And while the similarity to the Trek Madone is obvious, when you look at the pictures more closely, it's quite different. Trek used the design to both provide claimed aero improvements in that area, but also comfort. And in my experience, the Madone is a very smooth bike for an aero race bike. It's a good comfort flex in the saddle. The Elves design doesn't appear to have the same sort of cantilever layout with that kink in the seat tube junction. So it will be interesting to hear the claim for this bike, whether it's pure aero or whether they found comfort improvements as well. And while the hole in the seat tube does grab your attention, it's also interesting how the fork blades and rear stays appear to have a wide stance, and does remind me to a lesser degree of the Hope Lotus track bike, which is a more extreme version of this idea of moving key elements of the frame away from the spinning wheels to decrease that turbulent air between the frame and the wheels. It's certainly a lot more extreme than the current model, the Phalith Evo, so whether it's a new version of that or a new model in the range remains to be seen, but stay tuned for hopefully a first look at the bike in the future when it launches. I reviewed the Vanguard Pro Disc 2 years ago, and a bike I was impressed with. That's a lightweight semi-aero bike, and hopefully I get a chance to ride the new bike when it launches. Given how the bike looks finished in the photos, I would imagine a launch sometime this year, hopefully this summer. So I'll do my best to get my hands and my legs swung over that bike and see how it performs and see how it compares to a Trek Madone. Is it a Trek Madone but with a cheaper price tag? I can't wait to find out. Anyway, that's my roundup of this week's news. Make sure to hit that subscribe button for more content like this on a regular basis. And if you want to see a roundup of the best road bikes available in 2025, then do check the video out right here. But that is all for today. I'll see you again very soon. Thank you so much for watching.